On today's show, we're going to have Frank Napoli from Prudential Americana Group. He's a real estate agent. We're going to discuss the real estate market, where it's headed, and what options are available to you. Should you stay or should you go? We've got a lot of great information, so stick around. Thanks for tuning in.
From our studios in Las Vegas, this is Talking Money with Anthony DeLuca.
Before we get into the interview, we're going to go over some viewer questions. Last week we had Jan wrote in, and she wanted to know where she should put her money, because I was very specific in saying I didn't like the stock market. Well, you know what, you're right, but I can tell you, if you want to have $1 million in the stock market, I'll tell you how you do it. You start with 2, and before you know it, you'll have 1. I don't like stocks. I think they're dangerous. I think it's like playing in the casino. And it's just a question of whether or not the market is peaked at the time you're retiring, and that's not where you should be gambling on your retirement. What I do like is I like very conservative investments where your principal is guaranteed. Things like treasury bonds, not municipal bonds, not corporate bonds, because they can be just as dangerous as stocks. But if you have treasury bonds from stable governments like the United States, Australia, New Zealand, some of them play pretty high returns, upwards of 5.75%. At least it's something to look into. I'm not a financial advisor, but at least you have something to take a look at as a potential investment. Much safer than the stock market. Another question I get all the time is whether or not people should stay in their home or whether they should walk away. It really depends upon your age. Your home is your biggest investment you're going to make in your entire life. Now, whether you should keep it or not doesn't necessarily depend only upon the amount of your payment. A lot of people say, well, you know, I'd rather keep my house than go rent. Well, if your house is upside down by $150,000, you are renting. Think about it. You have a $300,000 mortgage and the house is worth $150,000. Let's say you pay $1,000 for your mortgage, and let's say there's no interest. So now you owe $299,000 and your house is worth $150,000. You still have zero equity. You are renting. Nothing's going into your pocket at the end of the day. And on top of that, you're being so generous with the banks that you're paying for their mortgage insurance, you're paying for their property taxes, you're paying the HOA, you're paying the maintenance on the landscaping, the pool, and if the water heater breaks down, instead of being the landlord's problem, now it's your problem. So it's something to keep in mind. If you're in your late 70s or 80s and you just don't want to move, and you're never going to own the house, and you know that, that's one thing. But if you're in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, then you really have to take into consideration whether it's beneficial for you to simply bite the bullet now, walk away from the home, buy again in a few years. Joining us today on Stress-Free Finance is Frank Napoli from Prudential Americana Group. Welcome to the show, Frank.
It's great to be here, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so now you're a real estate agent, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
How long have you lived in Las Vegas?
I've been in Las Vegas for 35 years.
35 years.
Originally from New York. Just still didn't lose the accent, but been here for 35 years.
Well, I understand how that goes. I'm from New Jersey.
There you go.
It's the same accent. Okay, so you've been here for 35 years, and you've been here and you've seen probably most of the growth that's going on in the Valley.
I just love it. When I first got here, the biggest thing, I used to live in a place called Paradise Palms, and that's right behind the Boulevard Mall. Nice place to live. And it was a big event to go to a place called Von Tobel's, which was on Maryland Parkway, somewhere around Karen there. And it was a nice town then. It's a great city now, but it was very nice back then.
So when you first started out in real estate, which was how many years ago?
20 years ago.
20 years ago. What was the growth like then? Was it just traditional appreciation, 3 to 5% a year? And
we had a little bit of a glut back then also. When I first got into real estate, the lakes had already been formed. And the lakes was over just west of Durango, in between Durango and let's just say Fort Apache area, Sahara and Desert Inn. And they had, it was a great master plan community there. And there was too much inventory. So even when I first got into real estate, we were having trouble selling homes in the lakes because we had about 3 years worth of inventory back then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously we got into 2005 and everything just exploded. What do you think the primary reason was for that explosion in growth here in the Valley?
Well, Vegas was a very desirable place to come to. The draw, that was the original question. The draw was that you can sell a home in California, not at that time, but in New York or other places throughout the United States, and come here to Las Vegas and buy twice the house or more than where you sold from for half the price. And that was a tremendous draw. And we had once people started realizing that, they were coming in. We've had figures from 4,000 a month to 5, 6, sometimes 7,000 people a month coming into Vegas looking for these opportunities. And it was the opportunity in housing that allowed Vegas to start to grow.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's only been in the last couple of years that we've actually, for the first time in a long time, seen more people leaving the state than coming to the state, which is a pretty big, it's a pretty big turnaround. It's a pretty big statement about where the economy is going here and about real estate itself. Do you think?
Well, yeah, it is. I know that everywhere throughout the United States, as we all know, there's unemployment problems, there's housing problems. The biggest challenge here with Las Vegas is that if we started to lose our housing values, and once construction stopped here in this town, the only other industry that we had to look at was the casino industry.
Right.
And once people started feeling economic hardships throughout the United States, as we know, our casino industry started to feel the crunch also.
Right.
So as a result, there was not a lot of job opportunities here, so people had no other choice but to start leaving. And that's what we're experiencing right now. What Vegas really needs is we need more jobs,
Right.
more other industries coming in here to create jobs.
You know, one of the big things was that I mean, obviously everybody's aware of the story with real estate here. I mean, things skyrocketed and then they plunged. I mean, it went up as high as it did, and then it came down probably even further. I mean, I think we're back, and maybe you agree or disagree, but I believe we're at about 2002 levels now, maybe even a little bit further.
I think we could probably go a little lower than that.
You think we're in the 90s?
Yeah, I actually do, and it's a shame because I felt pretty comfortable. I own a few houses myself. It was smart to buy then. We would buy blue collar type rentals, and I was pretty comfortable because most of these were purchased before 2003, and now there's a good percentage of the ones that I own that are upside down. Not a lot, but I think you're looking at prices back in the high 90s.
I mean, from the peak, my estimates that I read have been a drop from between 52 and 55% from the peak, which I find to be just absolutely incredible. And it's left so many people holding the bag. I mean, people, you know, a lot of the impression it's given off is it was just people who were going out and investing. I don't think that's really the case. I see a lot of people coming into my office they came in, they just bought one home for themselves. They put a big chunk of money down on it, sometimes their life savings, and they bought a house that's $300,000, they owe $300,000, now it's worth $140,000. What do you typically recommend? So when somebody comes into your office and they're saying, I just don't know what to do, I have this house, it's worth I owe $300,000, I can't sell it, what are my options?
Well, we always give them their options. I've found, though, that most of the people that come into the office really want to keep their home, and we want to help them keep their home also. So when they come into the office, we talk to them about the loan modifications, and most people that come into the office, they come in thinking that the banks are going to take some principal amount
Right.
of the loan modification, and that's not the case.
Right.
And you know how they get principal reductions, but it's not off of loan modifications. And but we can get them different interest rates. We can get them extensions on their loan times, extension in years. And if that's what they want to do, we'll do everything we can to help them with their loan modification to get a reduced payment. Then the other option is that
And you don't charge anything for the loan modifications?
no, I don't. We do it absolutely free. No hidden fees. No administration fees. No tipping. We do it absolutely free. Yeah, we do. We do.
Now, I know that you and we probably have different perspectives on that. That's fine. That's why I wanted you on the show. We
That's
can't
great.
don't want to bring people in here just always agreeing with me. One of the issues I have with the loan modifications is that even when they grant them, which I don't know what your figures are, what your perspective is, not real high number of the loan modifications are even granted.
You're seeing 35% at best. So 65% of people that apply for loan modifications don't get them.
And now the ones that do get them, I mean, I've seen people come in who have fought for 8 months, a year, and they dropped their amount they owe by $75. What was the point of that?
Well, you know, Anthony, that's the reason why we started doing it for free, because my real estate business throughout the years has been great for me. And we had clients coming in for the last 2 years, and they would actually pay for a loan modification and not get anywhere near what they thought they would get,
Right.
and maybe not get any modification at all, and sometimes not even get into service, but they still had the same problem. They just had less money in their pocket. So since they were
Right.
our clients, we started helping them, and we became very, very good at it. But realistically, you know, the loan modification normally doesn't wind up being what people are looking for.
So along the same lines where you're talking about defaulting or re-defaulting on the loans, I've been reading a lot about the HAMP program under Obama and how a lot of those, it was just more hype than anything. There was nothing really substantive about the program, and they expected to help something like 4 million people, and it ended up helping a fraction of that. And as you said, a huge percentage of that number actually end up re-defaulting. And I think the problem is that these were lousy loans to begin with, and now they're trying to make, you know, a house out of mud.
Yeah, they in HAMP, the requirement is that the mortgage payment has to be 31% of your income. Well, with the people that apply for HAMP, that 31% of the income is nowhere near where the mortgage company wants to allow the loan, in
Right.
most cases. So as a result of that, they get denied from HAMP. And the only good thing about HAMP is they go to HAFA after that. And with HAFA is that if, and I know we'll probably get into this subject deeper, but if you go through HAMP, you can go to HAFA, and then if you go to HAFA and short sale your home, then you qualify for a relocation allowance up to $3,000, and you qualify for a short sale where the deficiency is automatically approved.
You know, what I find to be sort of ironic is that if you go back a few years and look at the similarities between the loan modifications and the 3-year and 5-year ARMs, it's basically all the banks did was they took these 3- and 5-year ARMs and they sold them to the public, saying, look, you can pay this lower interest rate for 3 or 5 years, and then we'll just refinance out because this party's going to go on forever.
That's right.
And now they're doing the same exact thing, except that they've just repackaged it and said it's called a loan mod now. But isn't it the same thing? I mean, you have a lower interest rate for 5 years, and then they jump your payment up again.
Well, true. It is true, but you can extend the length of the loan. And again, there's a lot
You
to
don't
talk
wanna say
about
to
that.
that.
There's a lot to talk about that. But what banks are doing is that we can get a bank down to 2%, all right, and we can keep it at 2% for a couple of years, and then gradually, within a 4 or 5 year period, have it freeze at 4.5%. That's not a bad interest rate. It really and truly isn't. You still have the principal amount. You're still upside down in your home. But if this is the home that you want to keep, and you know you're going to be there for the next 300 years, you know, or 15 years or so, you know, you'll have your equity back. You'll have your home, and that'll work. But what I don't like is what these banks put these teaser rate loans in, and that's what you're talking about, the lower interest rate to begin with. Don't worry, we'll refinance you out as these rates start to go up. I'll do it for free. That's what the loan officers would say. When this time comes, we'll do it for free and whatnot. But we try to get a loan modification for someone that isn't really doing that bad, because loan modifications are hardships. That's what stimulates the loan modification. We try to apply with someone that's really not doing that bad, and just try to get the banks to just fix the interest rate, so we don't have to worry about the interest rate in the future. And it makes so much sense for the banks to do that, and that's one of our hardest things to accomplish with a bank.
You know, you look at what Bernie Madoff did.
Yes.
I mean, compared to what the U.S. government did and getting $700 billion away, it's like Bernie Madoff stole a candy bar from the corner convenience store.
Exactly right. The banks are bigger bad guys. There's no question about it. I've heard terms, you know, banks are bandits without masks, you know, and things like that. And when I first got into this, I have to tell you that when I first got into this, I used to say that whenever you made a profit on a house, if you made $100,000 on a home or a real estate investment, you didn't cut the bank a check for $25,000 because they lent you the money and you had a capital gain. So why are you asking the bank to participate in your loss? So I had this feeling that maybe the banks were getting the short end of the stick here. I honestly don't feel that way now, not at all. The homeowners really need some help, and if the banks would just open up just a little more, take these teaser rate loans and fix them, and do a little bit of reductions based on some of the money that they receive from our government, they could fix this problem pretty darn quick. And they're not doing it, and they really should be called to the carpet because of it.
What do you think the reluctance is? I mean, if you look at it from an outside perspective, I mean, if the bank is going to they take the home back anyway,
right,
and they're going to realize that loss, why don't they just cut principal?
It's a perfect, it's a great question, and I don't have an answer for you, all right? But a simple way to look at this: you have a $300,000 note, and the home is worth $150,000. We can go in with a homeowner that would be willing to refinance this or loan mod this home for $170,000, even though it's only worth $150,000. Just a fixed, straight interest rate for the next 30 years, $170,000 against a $150,000 home. Forgive the other note, and we'll all go down the road, and everybody will be happy. The banks will say no to that. Absolutely no. That's not even a consideration. Why did you even call us? All right. So they'll either short sale that home, approve a short sale at $140,000. All right. They'll pay real estate commissions, closing costs. All right, and wind up netting about $115,000, but wouldn't let the homeowner stay in their home for $20,000 more than what the home is worth.
Right.
And they do it all day long, and I don't understand that at all. I just don't.
One of the big concerns that I have is that there's this shadow inventory. And really what I'm referring to is the banks have these homes out there where they haven't foreclosed for 2 years. I have clients come to my office and we fill out their sheet, their intake sheet, and it says, how many months are you behind your mortgage? 24 months. I mean, so the banks, I mean, I realize why the banks aren't doing it, because the more houses they foreclose, the more they have to add to their inventory list, and it's just basic economics. The more supply, the greater pressure downward on home prices. So they don't want to glut the market with more inventory, so they just let them sit. So the actual number of foreclosures that they're claiming, which on a national level is outrageous to begin with, there's 1 million homes foreclosed. 1 million homes were foreclosed. And 2.9 million homes received a foreclosure notice of some sort, whether it be a notice of default or an actual
sale.
Right. So 2.9 million homes last year received some form of the foreclosure, were in some form of the foreclosure process. And that number is actually lower than what it would have been, because remember in November, December, they came back in and they said, we're stopping foreclosures because of all these robo-signing nonsense, more bank nonsense where they were just pursuing foreclosures without actually reviewing the documentation. So that number would have been higher, but for the fact that they stall foreclosures in November, December. Now, where are those foreclosures going to go? They're going to go into 2011. But what happens when they can't just delay forever? At some point, all of this inventory that's out there is going to have to come to the table. And when it does, and it gluts the market even further, then what's going to happen to home prices?
They're going to plummet.
And the big thing to keep in mind is that a lot of people talk about, well, it's only certain pockets of the country, like Miami or Las Vegas or parts of Southern California or Detroit. Well, it's only 4 or 5 metropolitan areas that have really gotten hit. But I don't think what people are taking in perspective is that the banks put most of those refinances in those 5 places. Right. So those 5 places can drop the whole economy. I mean, it's like saying, well, there's only 5 holes in my boat. Really? That's great. Yeah, paddle fast. Yeah. So, I mean, and you couple that with, look at the unemployment rate here in Las Vegas. It was 12.9. Now it's up to 14.3%.
And that's only the ones that are collecting.
Right. Which I think is another really interesting manipulation of statistics.
It really is.
After you're done collecting unemployment and still don't have a job, we just won't count you anymore.
Won't count you anymore.
How does that work?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And I think if you were to put those figures in, you're talking in excess of 20%.
Yeah, so easily.
To me, the unemployment ratio is 20%. We are the country. We're the citizens here. And and we need to hold people more accountable for what they're doing. We elected people to go up and represent us and to protect us. And right now, we're in a position where we could lose our country. We could lose the lifestyle that we're accustomed to. We can lose our freedom. And we need to do something about it. We can no longer hope that someone is going to take care of what we need them to take care of. They need to answer for what they do for us. So we need to watchdog them. We need to pressure them. And we need to get them in when we think they're going to do something and get them out if they don't. We have to watch them better. And if we don't do that, I have a feeling that we just won't have what we have here today.
I agree. I think the difficulty there is that the people who need to be held accountable would have to be asked to hold themselves accountable, and it's Congress. And the only people that are really monitoring or controlling Congress is Congress. I mean, the American people, theoretically, yeah, you can vote in who you want to be in Congress, but what's amazing to me is that 90% of the incumbents will be reelected. The American people are the ones who need to take control, but it's not happening. And part of the reason why it's not happening is because the way our system is set up. You got Republicans and Democrats.
Right.
How often do you ever hear of a third party candidate winning? It's not too often. That's because look at the amount of money it's being spent. Harry Reid had a $25 million war chest to go advertise with. Pretty hard for I or you wanted to run against them.
You're right.
You don't have that kind of money sitting around. So, I think part of the difficulty is just the way the system is set up. That it doesn't make it easy for change to come about.
Yeah, you have to put the flags down. You have to put the flags. Everybody feels that they belong to this party or that party, and all things are going to be great if their party gets in. Well, we've had both parties in, and all things aren't great. So what they need to do is, again, stop doing what we're doing because it's not working. And not only stop doing what our government's doing because it's not working, but stop doing what we're doing because it's not working. Who's ever in office, you need to make them accountable, even if you have to write a letter every day, email them every day, and not just one person so you're a quack, all right? But people have to join together and they have to get these issues, they have to press these issues. And I can go on with this, sure, Anthony, because it's really, this stuff really needs to be done. It should be a lot more organized, and I agree with that. I'm not looking for vigilante groups to form, but there's a lot of intelligent people out there, and there's a lot of us that go on and do what we do to make it good for us and our families. I think we need to devote a little more time to our country, each individual, and if we do, I'm sure with the intelligence that we have out there, our fellow citizens, we should be able to come up with ways to make people a lot more accountable to do what they need to do.
Yeah, and part of the issue is that people are so wrapped up in keeping their homes,
everyday life,
and just holding down the ship in their own little domain, that getting out there and trying to participate in the political process isn't always on the forefront of their thinking. And I think there's also a frustration level where people say, what's going to change? What's the difference? And it's not to say that it's impossible to bring about change, but I think that, you take the example of the 2008 bailout. 70% of the American people were against that.
Right.
And Congress did it anyway.
They did it anyway.
So what kind of profound statement does that send to the American public? It's, well, we voice our opinions and they do what they want anyway. And theoretically, that's the way we set up our government. We elect representatives who make decisions on our behalf, and it's presumed that those decisions will be in the best interest of the American people. But in that particular example, it seemed like the best interests were in the camp of the lobbyists in the banking industry who support the political campaigns of the politicians and not the American people. And that's where a lot of the frustration comes from.
And we have to single out those who made those decisions and get rid of them. We do. Replace them.
And when you say it's our country, the point that raises in my mind is that right now, 40% of our national debt is held by foreign countries. U.S. Treasuries, they're held 40%. Yeah. They're held by foreign countries, and we keep selling more and more of our country out from under us.
That's right, and that's got to stop. It really and truly has to stop. The President said last night we have to freeze our budget. You got to do more than freeze it. You got to reduce it. You have to reduce it. And there's some people that have to tighten up because of it, and I understand that. And there's, but the bottom line is that, you know, I'll give you another, foreign aid. I know how important foreign aid is, but I don't know if it's more important than losing our country over it. Right. And if we were to knock out foreign aid for the next 10 years, would that upset other countries? Sure it would. But if we started foreign aid on the 11th year, they'd like us again. Mm-hmm. You know, and there's just things like that. We just have to reevaluate where this money's going and put it back into this country and make it work for our country.
Yeah, I just hope that we're not at the point where the deficits have become so great and the interest that we as a country pay out has been so great that you know, they're expecting within the next 10 years something like 20% of GDP will be spent on interest. And I think we're starting to rapidly approach the point where our interest is going to be so high that we're not going to be able to make enough money to ever overcome it. So they when you say now, it really has to be now.
Well,
because it's you know, it's an oversimplification, but it's like some of the clients come in my office. If you have $1,000 in credit card payments a month and you only make $500, you cannot pay that ever.
That's right.
And my fear is that we're starting to get to that point where the United States is not going to be able to cover a $65 trillion total projected deficit. And we need to make some changes pretty quick. And well, I appreciate you coming on the show, Frank.
I've really enjoyed it, Anthony. It's great talking to you.
Some great information you had. I appreciate your insight. And Frank Napoli from Prudential Americana Group. We had his number up on the screen here, and thanks again.
You're great. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the show. At DeLuca & Associates, we're committed to making the bankruptcy process as simple as possible. So we're excited to announce a new online feature where you can go to our website, deluca-associates.com, and fill out a consultation form. We'll then set up a call with you where I'll speak to you personally about your financial needs. As always, at DeLuca & Associates, your best interests come first, and we're trying to help you to accommodate your busy schedules. Call us at 252-HOPE or visit us online at deluca-associates.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for another great show. I'm attorney Anthony DeLuca. Deciding to keep your home or walk away is always a tough decision, but one thing is certain. Spending thousands of dollars to modify a loan on a home that's worth less than half of what you owe is not always sound financial advice. If your bankruptcy attorney recommends a loan modification or a Chapter 13, get a second opinion. At DeLuca & Associates, your best interests come first. Call us at 252-HOPE.